we are very excited to have Mandy. She is going to moderate a panel on small business lending, but I've asked Mandy to spend a few minutes. We are a little bit ahead of schedule, and if we can get out early, great. But I do want her to spend a few minutes telling you about what the state's role over the last year and what they've done. And so she's going to do that, and I'm going to welcome Mandy. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I hope y'all have had a wonderful and informative day today. Our panel is titled Filling the Gap for Existing Business Growth, and we are going to focus on strategies that would support, in particular, small businesses. So I hope that this morning has been informative and enlightening for each of you. It certainly has been beneficial for me as a representative of the state's Economic Development Agency. I'd like to begin with introductions of our panel. So we have with us today Ms. Heidi Malone, who's the Regional Director of the Louisiana SBDC at UL. And you have each of their bios, but I do want to highlight something really cool about each of the panelists. Heidi's Small Business Development Center was recently awarded the 2018 SBDC Excellence in Innovation Award for Louisiana and for SBA Region 6, which covers the Southeast region of the U.S. So that's a big deal. Help me welcome Ms. Heidi. Thanks. Also joining us today is Ms. Lisa Malaz, and Lisa is with the South Central Planning and Development Commission. Lisa overhauled the lending policies that govern all aspects of South Central Planning's re-lending activities, specifically including the creation of Restore Relending, so as to maximize the resources available for redevelopment in opportunity zones. So welcome, Lisa. And last but certainly not least, we have Dr. Shannon Nelson, who is the leader of the Community Development Department at Lafayette Consolidated Government. Under Dr. Nelson's leadership, the department implemented a new annual Community Development Week and coordinated local outreach events in collaboration with the FDIC OCC and hosted 2 grant writing and capacity building training sessions for local and statewide agencies. So help me also to welcome Dr. Shannon Nelson. And I'm Mandy Mitchell, Assistant Secretary at Louisiana Economic Development. I'm responsible for public policy and federal, state, and local governmental affairs. I also oversee our small business services teams, our community competitiveness team, and our state economic competitiveness team. So I'll briefly cover, as Monique mentioned, the state's role in opportunity zones and how that ties into our small business development strategies. So by now you are familiar with opportunity zones, and as you know, hopefully now know, it gives us one more valuable tool in our tool belt to enhance our state's effort to attract investment to communities that need it the most. We must identify strategies, as I hope has been discussed today, to differentiate Louisiana's opportunity zones from the 8,700 other zones that have been designated by every state in the U.S., the District of Columbia, and 5 U.S. territories. So Louisiana submitted a total of 150 census tracts, which represents the 25% limit allowable for the eligible tracts in any given state. So Louisiana had 597 eligible low-income census tracts, and of that, we were allowed to designate 150 of those. Now, how we got to that point is we began with seeking input from local officials. We wanted to get the information from the locals because no one knows better which communities around the state could stand to benefit the most from this program. So we relied the heaviest on local input. We also launched a 2-week public comment period, and we did that in March. And so in addition to local officials, we heard from private citizens as well as private equity and investment firms. It was extremely important to us to engage local leaders because quite similarly to the statement that all politics is local, well, everything that impacts economic development is local. The decisions that are made by local, parish, and regional elected officials impacts the investment decisions that employers make each and every day. So just to give everyone in the room a sense of the collaboration that took place to whittle down the 600 zones to the 150 that would ultimately be designated, for a 4-month period from the time the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act was enacted through the April deadline, LED spent time in calls, meetings, conference calls, you name it, with local officials all over the state. And to give you a flavor, the folks that we heard from mayors, council members, legislators, members of Congress, metropolitan planning organizations, economic development districts, DDDs, DDAs, redevelopment authorities, parish and regional economic development organizations, higher ed leaders, hospital leaders, port authority leaders, private investment and equity firms, churches, and individuals from every region of the state. I want to pause here and commend Acadiana. The leadership in Acadiana, from One Acadiana and LEDA, the Acadiana Planning Commission, Lafayette General Hospital, the mayor's office, our legislative delegation, those groups collaborated together to identify the optimal census tracts that should be included in the Opportunity Zones program. And I also, again, want to commend Acadiana for being out front with the prospectus. There are other regions of the state that are working now to get their act together and replicate the Opportunity Zones prospectus that has been developed for Acadiana. So Acadiana has a leg up on other regions in the state, and we kind of encourage that friendly competition because it causes the quality of what we all offer to kind of lift up. So layered in with the feedback that LED received from local officials and community and economic developers, we identified areas that were primed for investment, those areas that had known certified sites, buildings, or tracts of land, as well as proximity to regional assets such as hospitals, such as ports, universities, etc. We also factored into our analysis an effort to select a mix of tracts so that we can have a balance between urban and rural, North and South Louisiana, etc. We also identified opportunities to leverage opportunity zones with other programs, example, new markets tax credits, enterprise zones, etc. So lastly, we worked to ensure that we definitely had this balance of distribution and that there was a purview of not just economic development, which is our world, but also community development. So think of quality of place enhancements like affordable housing, mixed-use retail, etc. So if you could, yeah, you're keeping up with me, Chad. Good.
Trying to.
Yes, thank you. I'm trying to get out of the way of our wonderful panel. So one of the advantageous design elements of the Opportunity Zones program is that Opportunity Fund investments are not limited to land and buildings. So most people think about land and real estate and business assets, but it is also important to note that also eligible are equity investments in businesses that are situated in qualified opportunity zones. This aspect of the program excites LED, but it ought to excite angel investors and venture capitalists around the state. So one more excellent feature of the Opportunity Zones program that I want to tout, and I'm sure it's been discussed today already, this program is stackable with any other existing federal or state incentive. So think about, as has been mentioned, new markets tax credits, enterprise zones, the Research and Development Tax Credit, and the Angel Investor Tax Credit. The latter are Louisiana state tax credits. So because we are discussing small business and filling the gap in this panel, I do want to pause and just touch upon the state's R&D tax credit and the Angel Investor Tax Credit. So those programs are both designed to help fill the gap for small businesses as they're trying to grow or conducting research in the state. Those two programs are among the most competitive tax credit incentive programs in the country. For the R&D tax credit program, the business making those investments can earn up to a 30% tax credit, and there's special treatment for those businesses that get federal small business innovation research or tech transfer grants. And then the Angel Investor Tax Credit is designed to spur investment in Louisiana entrepreneurial businesses by accredited investors. That provides a 25% tax credit for an eligible investment. And so remember, these state incentive programs help fill the gap, and others can be layered in with opportunity zones. So there is no prohibition on combining incentives to make projects in opportunity zones work for the investor and the community. So here we are. If you go back one more, Chad, very briefly, LED has a robust suite of small business services programs, and we support businesses in our shop from pre-venture all the way through high-growth second-stage companies. I'm not going to go through each one of these because one of our great partners is here today, and she will touch on some of those programs. But I did want to raise awareness of our small business programs, but I want to spend just a little time on the state small business loan guarantee program, because I have been told, little birdie told me, that we have a lot of bankers in the audience here. So in order to be, let's go to the next slide, please. In order to be eligible for this program, a small business must meet the SBA definition of a small business, must be domiciled in Louisiana, and the owner must be a Louisiana resident. And there are minimal net new job creation requirements for this program. But as you can see, the state will provide a 75% guarantee for loan amounts for small businesses between $5,000 and $1.5 million. And we do have equity requirements, and we do have a quick turnaround option for loans that are $500,000 or less. And so we do what we can at the state level to help fill the gap, access to capital for businesses, and the opportunity zones will, in our opinion, we believe the opportunity zones will ignite and catalyze further investment in Louisiana small businesses. I do want to highlight and give a shout out to some of the participating Acadiana banks in the Small Business Loan Guarantee Program. So Farmers Merchants Bank, Farmer State Bank and Trust, First National Bank, Home Bank, Rain State Bank, and Citizens Bank of Ville Platte, which is now Investar. So those are just a sampling of the banks in our Acadiana region that have approached the state with a small business partner to take advantage of this program. All right, so I did want to leave everyone with some resources on opportunity zones. LED has a landing page on our website for opportunity zones as well as our small business programs. And below are some national federal government resources that we have found at the department to be extremely informative on opportunity zones. So at this time, I'll turn it over to our first panelist, Ms. Heidi Malone, who will cover the services offered by the UL SBDC and how those programs better position small businesses in Acadiana for opportunity zone eligible investments. Heidi.
Good afternoon, everybody. Like I said, I'm Heidi Malone. I am the director of the Small Business Development Center here at UL Lafayette. Probably telling you what we do in a nutshell is probably one of the hardest training that we have to put out there, because typically we're out there educating people about all of the programs, anything it does to do with startup, expanding your business, acquiring a business. So talking about ourselves is the hardest part because it's so broad and it's so general about what we do. So I'll just kind of start with what who is the Small Business Development Center and how we're able to offer our services at no cost to the public. So SBDCs, it's a national program, and we are funded through SBA, a cabinet position, under U.S. Small Business Administration. I think the program funding kind of fluctuates from year to year, and our budget goes up and down with that as well. And I think right now we're about $130 million across the United States. Well, when that equates for Louisiana, that's a very small amount that we get because it goes according to our population. And what's great about it, our money is matched with Louisiana Economic Development funding. So what's great about it is we're able to offer our services at no cost. And I can't leave UL Lafayette out of it because we are UL Lafayette employees. So that's our little dysfunctional family. But what's great about it is it's a lot of resources that's available in our community that's at your disposal. And technically, I report to the dean of the business college. And so we have great professors on staff here at the university that has a plethora of disciplines in the business. And we're just actually practitioners in the community doing exactly what they're teaching every day. So just when you look at that, Louisiana, we're able to host about 7 centers throughout the state. I cover 8 parishes of Acadiana, and that's with 3 people. And so it's challenging in some cases, but we work on one-on-one basis with our clients, but we also offer training. And I can tell you at this point, where we are, since I've been with the center as 2005, all of our parishes are rising up to the challenge of economic development. And on the books right now, I think I have training events that are going to span the 8 parishes. So we are going to be going all around because I can tell you, as long as I've worked here, I've never seen the cooperation from the outer parishes like we're seeing now. And so there's a huge push for rural development, and that's really exciting. And what we heard today from Opportunity Zones, we're just going to have a stronger foundation for our small businesses to do a lot better. So I think I told you a little bit about how we administer our services. And we're here part of the Light Center. So as Monique had said earlier, this is a UL Lafayette building. This is economic development, and we've got some great resources that are available to the public. I think as you can see, I'm not the best PowerPoint person, but, and I told you there's 1,100 SBDCs. So that's the beauty of the network is there's a huge amount of strength across the state. And there are some really great dedicated professionals that are in our network. They come from private sector. Some of them are just starting up. So it's really evolved since I've gotten involved in the network, and just really enjoy this work and really helping business owners introduce them to what your tax dollars are actually funding so that you can expand your business and really be strong. I'm going to go back and forth because, like I said, we do assist entrepreneurs in all stages. I see anything from somebody has an idea, they're a startup, but SBA does task us. We're a very metric-based organization which has evolved. So capital is our #1 goal that we're graded on. If we're not actually securing capital in any which way, it could be owner's equity, it could be loans, then that's not necessarily a high-performing center. So that is very important in our network. And so, of course, we work from bank referrals. We work from economic development organizations refer clients to us. And I have to brag about Acadiana. I think in our network, we're kind of the envy of our SBDC network because we have a really great entrepreneurial system that's from macro side to micro side in getting you that help that you need, whether you're starting that business, expanding, or using tax credits. And we have a great referral network between all of the entities, and very proud of what I've seen in the outer parishes as well. But as far as we do administer a lot of the programs from our 2 funders, and that's what's holistic about our services. I'm going to try to stay with my PowerPoint. But I'm just going to start, I think, my next one. Okay, one of the things that we do with our clients in terms of business plan development, that's probably the hardest thing to conquer with business owners because a business plan is something different to everybody. If you go into the bank, there's only one which way to do that. And when we are working with a client, we try our best to really give them a strong foundation in developing that business plan and using market research. And that's a little bit something a little different, and what we stress in them, and like give some substantive information to that plan. If you're going to try to convince a banker to loan you $1 million, believe it or not, people will walk in, they want to go to the bank, they want a McDonald's drive-through, they want a number one, and they want $5 million. And I just think it's worth, $5 million is a lot of money. I think you really need to take that time. And we have so much access to research that we actually pay for as a network using our funds, so that you have that great foundation. And some of the other panels are going to talk about some of the other loan funds that are available outside of commercial banking. I like to think that we're the technical assistance side. We want to educate that person about this whole process. It's amazing when you can teach cash flow to somebody, because they're thinking, I'm starting up a retail shop, and you know what? When I'm looking at my income statement, I'm really making a lot of money. But when you really show them how money is a locomotive and it's moving through their business, by the time they get to that 5th month, they say, oh, well, where's the money to buy my fall wardrobe or what have you? They don't realize how money actually works. And what's really impactful is when you can see the light bulb go off in their mind, and they really don't have access to a lot of this information. I mean, true story, I received a telephone call from a client out of our area, in the River Parishes area, and that probably is in the New Orleans network. But it was a startup through 8-9 years. They grew it to where they were able to build a building, a $500,000 building, and they're renting to Smoothie King, and they've got some occupants. They really didn't know how to access additional capital for working capital. They had unforeseen expenses rise, a lawsuit going on with their contractor. Just be able to give them that education of how they can access some funds and in their ecosystem is impactful. I think I'm going to move on from there. And there again, I'm just going to brag about our award, because I think that was $19.3 million that we were able to help our clients secure in capital, whether they were using bank funds or microloan funds. Okay, so SBA, our funder. Some of the programs that are, I call my counseling holistic counseling. And when somebody walks in my office, I want them to know everything that their tax dollars pay for. So the SBA programs, how can we be creative in using the loan guarantee funds? And my job is to educate you as to how we can use the SBA guarantees out there so that you can secure the funding. There's a lot of misnomers in bank financing and how to get money. Do I need a down payment? What is collateral? Why do I need collateral? Well, in the world we're living in, you do need to do these things. And if we can educate them on the front end prior to spending a lot of time, because the saddest thing is to see somebody fail in a bank loan. And sometimes poor planning is the number one reason why they fail, or they undercapitalized. If I could have got them before they went to the bank, to educate them as to how we could have structured the loan is so much more impactful than on the back end. They're calling me and saying, I'm failing. It's really not a lot I can do at that point if I could have caught them on the front end of the loan. So some of the great programs that SBA does, if there's any bankers that use the 7A loan fund, and also the 504 loan that's also used for long-term fixed assets. Some of these we use, and as Mandy referenced, the LED loan guarantee program, sometimes we'll use them together. So there is a little creativity in banking and using some of these programs to unleash some capital that business owners are looking for. But outside of that, there's also other programs that business owners can access in terms of government contracting. There's a huge push for exporting. Any type of education that we can do coming from the federal government, we want you to know about it. Some of the contracting programs that are out there, and we work in conjunction with Louisiana Procurement Technical Assistance Center, Hub Zone certification, 8A Business Development Program, which is a mentoring program for government contracting. There's also the Service Disabled Veteran-Owned Business, and then we also have Woman-Owned Small Business Contracting Program. In addition, our Veterans Business Outreach Center does a lot of entrepreneurship training for veterans in our area as well. We hosted one here last July in the summer, and it was very well attended, and we're looking to do that training in the outer parishes as well. But I wouldn't be amiss if I wouldn't talk about Louisiana Economic Development Programs as well, because I spent a lot of my time in some of those programs because I think they're very exciting. One of probably the main vehicle that is offered is called the Small and Emerging Business Development Program. That program is a technical assistance program that is funded by our state. These are funds that are distributed throughout our state for technical assistance. So if you've got these are matching funds to help you with marketing, website development, business consulting, and lots of great information and education that can be used. We do peer-to-peer learning with this as well. It's something we bring business owners together once a month, and there's lots of peer learning going on. That's a fund that I like to disseminate, and I'm trying to do my best to get the money out into the parishes. And I can't have to mention Evangeline Parish because we've got some great things going on, and I'd love to duplicate what we're doing there in the other parishes as well. I know I got about 5 minutes. So Louisiana Contractors Accreditation, we have a huge push from our state for contractors, lots of education that's offered, and all of this is detailed on their website as well. And another program that Mandy also references, economic gardening. That's for our second stage entrepreneurs. Once you've reached $600,000 in revenue and 5 employees, that opens up a whole different level of technical assistance. That is it probably equated to about 36 to 40 hours of intensive market research. We want to expand you outside of the state into other niche markets where we can maybe take your next code and expand. And then that's coupled through lots of technical assistance in helping you with SEO, market research, and you actually get live sales leads out of that particular program. Also, the state also has state contracting incentives as well. And 2 of the programs that you can simultaneously certify in, as well as the SEBD program, is the Veterans Initiative as well as the Hudson Initiative. Also for contractors, and I sit on the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise board right now with the Lafayette Regional Airport, and we do have a bonding assistance program for our contractors. So if you ever have an opportunity to work with the airport or even just contracting and you're looking to grow into the commercial realm of contracting, we do have our own bonding assistance program in the state. I think I mentioned peer-to-peer roundtables. We do have CEO roundtables, and LED does give us the opportunity to offer the same incentive to small business owners, and that takes place every year, and we're wanting to do one in the outer parishes as well. And of course, the Small Business Loan Program is an excellent opportunity of unleashing capital as well. And we've also coupled that with SBA as well. So there's a little creativity, and I love to unleash lots of opportunities. But these 2 next panelists are going to talk about other loan programs that we also offer technical assistance and referrals to them. And I'm looking forward to hearing from both of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi. Very, very informative. We appreciate your partnership with Louisiana Economic Development.
Yeah.
And it's so much, as you can tell, there's so many programs, and we jump at the opportunity to inform the public about the programs that are available. And so thank you for that, Heidi. We're going to turn it over to Ms. Lisa Malaz with the South Central Planning and Development Commission.
Thanks, Mandy, and I want to thank Monique and APC and all of the sponsors that asked us to come here today to talk about Restore Lending and how it can work in conjunction with the opportunity zones. I'm, like Mandy said, I'm with South Central Planning and Development Commission. Just like APC, we're a regional development commission. They're Region 4, we're Region 3. We house the MPO just like they do, and we have some other departments within our organization. We have a big information technology program, economic development, planning, permitting. So all of these departments work together to form our commission. What my department, the loan department, does is to support regional development and resiliency by supporting small businesses and entrepreneurs and general economic development. We fill identified gaps in local capital markets within the qualifying parishes of the state of Louisiana and increase the flow of capital to businesses in our region. So that's what we do in general. That's what we do every day. And then about 2 years ago, the Restore Louisiana program came along. And that's when we were able to really increase the capital available to lend to small businesses both in our region and in the state of Louisiana. So what happened with Restore and how it funded is very similar to how we have received funding for all of the other loan programs that we administer. If there's a hurricane or some other kind of disaster, in the case of Restore, it was the 2016 flooding, the state or the federal government will grant us disaster recovery funds as part of a disaster declaration. We then lend those funds out to small businesses for the purposes of recovery, and as they revolve back into the organization, we can relend them for more general purposes outside of the actual recovery. So we've got 3 revolving loan funds outside of Restore. Restore has by far become the largest pot of funds that we've administered to date. As of Friday, we finished closing the 221st Restore loan, and that amounted to about $25.5 million. Now, the recovery benefit of the Restore program is really simple. It's a 0% 5-year term loan, and if you pay back 60% of it and meet all other compliance requirements, 40% is forgiven. So if you ended up with $100,000 for recovery, you only have to pay back $60,000. So of that $25 million, we're going to receive back in revolving funds about $15 million. In addition to the size of the fund, the size of the eligible area is actually, can you go 2 slides up? There. So the size of the actual area is much larger than we've ever done before as well. Our region consists of Terrebonne, Lafourche, Assumption, St. John, St. James, St. Charles, and St. Mary. There are 51 Restore parishes, and the only one from our region is St. James, so that's the only overlap. Of the 2 other funds that are available for small business loans that that are active right now, there's a $250,000 maximum. So our region is eligible for $500,000 or 2 of those funds, not Restore. St. James is also a Restore parish, so it's eligible for a maximum award of $750,000. And the Restore projects are eligible for $250,000. Now that Restore opportunity for relending in cooperation with opportunity zones, there are more incentives to borrow our funds for use in opportunity zones than if you were to just use them as a regular small business loan. Okay, back up again, please. Oh, no, up. One more. Up. That one. Okay, so who can borrow? Any kind of business. We even will work with nonprofits as long as they're not specifically for political or religious purposes. So that's individuals, sole proprietors, nonprofits that have schools or daycares or anything along those lines, anything that is a revenue source and doesn't have that isn't either religious or political. Corporations, partnerships, any kind of regular business entity, including sole proprietors. So then there's the eligible areas. Now, our regular program policy, there's that $250,000 cap. If the project is occurring in an opportunity zone, that can be increased. Credit not otherwise available, that is something that it kind of keeps us in line with our banks. I know there's a lot of bankers in the audience. The bankers that we work with are our partners. They sit on our committees, they act as advisors for us. We work hand in hand with them, and we wouldn't want even the smell of trying to compete with them. They're a private business. If they want your opportunity, if they want your business, they are entitled to that business. So all of our projects have to go through a bank in some way. Regular program, they usually go to a bank, get a denial, and then come to us. They can be partially funded by a bank and still be eligible to apply for that gap, which is where we think we can, work in cooperation with the banks for this opportunity zone opportunity. So we would work in cooperation with the bank pretty much on the bank's terms. That's something that we've done in the past with our regular program. The projects that come from the banks as opposed to coming directly to us are much better projects. If there's a bank involved in it, it's almost always going to work in comparison to someone that comes in having just simply been denied by the bank. It's a little bit of a riskier loan. So if the bank's involved, it lowers the level of risk tremendously, and it allows us to make an exception to lend more and to lower the interest rate. That could be the other incentive to lending our funds in these opportunity zones that are Restore parishes. All of which, by the way, Acadiana is a part of. Every Acadiana parish is both Restore eligible, and then there are the opportunity zone census tracts where we can lend. The interest rate traditionally in our loan programs has been right at 4%. And my director and I, who was supposed to give this presentation, by the way, went to an EDA conference. We have EDA funds that we use in a revolving loan fund in November, and we found out that nobody was lending at 4% anymore. Everybody had it gone up to at least 6%. So we thought, wow, we're looking for ways to keep these funds sustainable. Why do we continue to lend to everybody at 4%? So we changed the policy. I think Mandy talked a little bit about how we overhauled the entire loan policies within the last couple of months since that EDA conference. So we are allowing interest rates up to 7% in all the programs and lower dependent upon risk and whether or not they're in an opportunity zone. So the potential for our funds to be used along with opportunity zone funds allows for as low as a 4% interest rate and an amount that's higher than our regular maximum of $250,000. And the next slide just talks about the terms, and these are pretty standard. This was something that we redid when we redid the policy. It's a lot of tiny print, but our board that approves all of our loans and makes all of our loan decisions tweaked these a little bit, but these are pretty standard kinds of terms. So the application, this is where our application. So we would require basically the same things that a bank does, the same things that our regular loan program applications are. Where it gets a little different for the opportunity zones is the bank letter. We would much prefer to have a bank participate and to come to us with the project than we would to have somebody come in with a denial, because the opportunity, the risk is so much greater if the bank is not involved. And with these being relatively large projects, there's very little chance that we'll be able to fund an entire opportunity zone project with a cap of $250,000. So there's got to be private investment and some other kind of bank or financial institution lending. And then underwriting, we underwrite very similarly to the banks. We use traditional lending principles, credit scores, debt service coverage ratios. We, along with the revision of the policy, we created an underwriting matrix. So there's a score that's given to each application, and that was created with help of one of our board members who's also he's not really, he said, I'm not really a banker, I'm a back of the house guy. He's the guy in the back who writes all the policies. And he was very helpful in revising our policies and in coming up with this matrix tool that we've been using for the last couple of months. And, you know, we present to our bankers the way that their bankers present to them. So we're using very traditional kind of banking principles. Collateral, it's got to be reasonable, but with these real estate deals, that's not usually an issue. It's when someone comes to us strictly for working capital that we have to look at other forms of collateral. And this is a good place to talk about stacking of all of these programs. The new markets tax credits, the opportunity zones, all these different programs, SBA, bank loans, private financing. A lot of those programs don't like to fund things like working capital, and that's something that people come to us a lot. So if there's a good project on the table and they're just short on some cash flow, that's definitely something that we could look at this restore funding to come in and do. The only thing we really can't do is provide the equity investment for federal programs like SBA, like USDA, but we can still be part of a project where those kinds of funding sources are present. So that's really the only thing we can't do is that equity portion of it. And then the Brownfields Coalition. We administer the RLF that the Brownfield Coalition in this area supports. So that's another thing, another part of that stackable opportunity in these zones. So we can use Brownfields plus Restore plus Opportunity Zone funds, any of these federal programs, private investment bank opportunities, and stack them all. And that's kind of what we're looking to do with these Restore funds. We're trying to stay away from the traditional, regular, plain Jane small business financing, which is great, and that's really what we've built these loan funds on. But we want to get into some of these larger projects that allow us to invest the money and then have it revolve back into the organization more quickly, say, than a much smaller business loan. So, and then I will turn it over to Dr. Shania. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lisa. Rounding out our discussion today is Dr. Shannon Nelson, who is going to share with us some exciting things that LCG and the Office of Community Development are doing to support small businesses in our community.
Thank you so much, Mandy, and thank you to APC and the FDIC and OCC and all the partners here today. I tell you, since I started working for Lafayette Consolidated Government, I've really gotten good with the alphabet soup, all the acronyms for everything. But I'm Dr. Shannon Nelson. I'm the Director of Community Development for Lafayette Consolidated Government, and I'm really excited to be here to introduce for the first time in public. I feel like I need a drum roll for this labor of love. The Development and Revitalization Revolving Loan Fund. So I'm really excited after what we've heard this morning and this afternoon thus far to know that we are ahead of the game and we're not behind the 8 ball, because as Ms. Linda mentioned, things in government do not move quickly. And I'm working to establish this fund. That has been the case for us. It has definitely taken some time, making sure that we dot our I's and cross our T's, and that we're following our charter as we should be, in our state constitution, all that legal stuff that keeps us out of trouble. And so just to let you know about the role of community development here in Lafayette Parish, we're comprised of 3 divisions, one of which is housing and federal programs, which I'll give more details about, as it is the arm that's really driving this for LCG in our area. But we also have the human services division, which includes our housing counseling program. We also have 3 senior centers, the Greenhouse Senior Center, the Senior Art Studio, and the Rose House Wellness Center. And we also have an arts and culture division, which houses the Hyman Performing Arts Center, the Acadiana Park Nature Station, and the Lafayette Science Museum. So we're very diverse. We have lots of fun within community development, all the things that we do. So within housing and federal programs, we are responsible for the HUD entitlement funds that we receive. We receive CDBG and home investment partnership funds annually. We do have an annual plan that we follow, and we're boots on the ground. We focus on the low to moderate income population, which is what I really want to hone in on today to discuss the groundwork and how this came to be and the target areas that we're really focusing on for the purpose of this program. And just to let you know that the priorities that we focus on for our HUD entitlement funds are affordable housing, number 1, infrastructure, and economic development. So we're excited about this opportunity for us to be able to strengthen our economic development arm for small businesses in particular in these target areas that have experienced years of disinvestment from public and private side. Sorry, my watch decided to join the presentation. Sorry. Not sure what she had to say, but try to stay on time here.
We okay?
Where am I? Yeah.
Can we go back one?
Yes. Yeah, to the groundwork. Yeah, I'm not good with the power of this either. Okay. So, in the 17-18 fiscal budget, Mayor President Robideau dedicated $1 million for the purpose of development and revitalization in the target areas, basically the urban core, where a lot of corridor planning is happening within development and planning division, which I'll touch on in a bit and show you the maps for that. And so that's really exciting, right, to have $1 million dedicated for the purpose of being able to assist small businesses, those who have skin in the game in these target areas, to help them enhance the work that they're currently doing, whether it be to expand, those businesses who are looking to relocate into these areas. So very excited about that, wanting to spur economic development in these areas. So during this time, with the help of Councilman Kenneth Boudreaux, LCG began working with Ms. Linda Gabriel from the FDIC and Ms. Scarlett Dupleshin from the OCC. I have to give them their shout outs. They're awesome. And together we coordinated the 2017 Interagency CRA Officers Roundtable. It was the first time that we were able to come together with nonprofit agencies, public agencies here in Lafayette, with local banks to talk about CRA, what it means, what it looks like, and how we can connect what the needs of the community are with local banks who are wanting to meet those needs of the community through CRA. So it was definitely a priority to involve the financial institutions in learning more about the target areas and the work that's happening and the needs that exist there, and how CRA investments can build economic development in these areas. So that quickly led to, in 2018, we coordinated a small business forum for small business owners to share resources available, which I'll touch on in a minute, and those that we plan to use as part of the revolving loan fund. So in an effort to establish a public-private partnership, Mayor President Robideau reached out to local banks to discuss CRA and what that looks like here in Lafayette, and their possible participation in the revolving loan fund, by either giving financial contributions to the fund or in an advisory capacity. And I see a number of banks who have participated in those forums, those who've been in those meetings. Thank you for your support. I'm not going to call anybody out, but I see y'all back there. But thank you for your support. And as you'll see, we're still working, but definitely this wouldn't be possible without their support and their help. So thank you in advance for that. Okay, next. So just to go over the purpose of the revolving loan fund, LCG, through its development and revitalization loan section, will invest non-federal funds to stimulate business revitalization, create or retain low to moderate income jobs, promote economic development, and enhance neighborhood vitality and commercial enterprise within the city of Lafayette by making loans available to businesses. All loans funded by participating financial institutions must qualify as a community development activity under the Community Reinvestment Act. So we actually included this as an appendix, the CRA fact sheet, in giving details about what CRA is, what qualifies as a community development activity as part of the criteria, to make that very clear that that is a priority for us in these funds, and that's really how this all began and the foundation upon which this was built. So we're excited to, first of all, learn more about CRA and how we can work together, but happy to be able to embed that into this program. So to give you an idea of the areas that we're talking about, these maps were up from development and planning to identify the low to moderate census block groups, the corridor planning areas, and the I-49 corridor planning areas. If you're Lafayette people, if you're not familiar with all the work that's gone into the work with I-49, the Evangeline Corridor Initiative, the Catalyst projects that currently exist, that a number of them are starting to take shape and are getting started. There's a lot of momentum there in these particular areas, which is why we chose these target areas for this program. So specifically, the areas we're talking about are Simcoe Street, pretty much all of Simcoe, the Simcoe Corridor, University Avenue, and McKinley Street, and also Surrey Street. So really the urban core of the area, which definitely pulls in a number of opportunity zones for sure. And so moving on to the next slide, it's another map just to give you another idea of what's happening with the neighborhood coteries and the associations that have really taken shape, and a number of them have gained a lot of momentum with neighborhood plans, with grants that they've received, with projects that they're establishing on their own, and they are starting to engage with the small business owners in those areas in looking at what their plans are, long-term, short-term, whether it be with expansion. It seems like we've discovered that there are a number of home-based businesses that may be interested in coming out of the house and actually having a location in one of these areas. And so there's already a lot of momentum taking place, and this is an opportunity for us to capitalize on that. And I just want to mention that we are really focused on aligning the work that's currently taking place with what we're doing with the revolving loan fund. So that's really important to us with aligning what's going on. And the next map, just another overlay, just showing the urban core and just really bringing home the need for public and private investment. And I just also want to mention that in community development, the housing rehab programs that we offer, first-time home buyers programs are really, this is where it's at. This is the foundation that we focus on with the low to moderate income population in Lafayette. So in talking about eligibility, so the loan recipients may be individuals, public organizations, private organizations, or other legal entities. Recipients must have authority to incur debt and fulfill the purpose of the loan. 100% of the ownership or outstanding membership of the applicant must be U.S. citizens or legal aliens admitted to the U.S. for permanent residence. The applicant must be located in or willing to locate to the city of Lafayette or the unincorporated area Lafayette Parish. And nonprofit organizations can also be eligible, but they must generate sufficient revenue from their venture to cover debt. So I think that's something unique that we definitely want to learn more about, maybe tap into to LGMC possibly, and how we can have a better understanding of how that may work. The loan purposes. The loan can be used for the acquisition or purchase of existing businesses, business construction, conversion, enlargement, repair, modernization, or development, purchase and development of land, servitudes, easements, rights-of-way, building, facilities, leases, or materials, purchase of equipment, machinery, furniture, fixtures, and inventory, startup operating costs and working capital. We are not counting out startup businesses, revenue producing nonprofit ventures, and any reasonable fees that may be associated with the closing of the loan. And I should say, loan purpose is not allowed. Not trying to confuse you here. That's loan purposes not allowed are purchasing land or constructing businesses for real estate investment, any other kind of passive investment opportunity, using the loan for a use not approved by the loan approval group, which I'll talk about the decision-making authority. Locating or relocating outside of Lafayette Parish, supporting any illegal activity or any sin business, as someone mentioned earlier, I like that term, and improperly licensed or zoned use. Those cannot be used for the loan. So regarding the application, the information required is pretty standard. As Lisa mentioned, what a bank would require in terms of the application. I won't read that to you, that's there. But what's really key here is the technical assistance that we will be requiring for applicants. And we expect that a number of the applications and applicants that will be applying for this loan opportunity will definitely need services from LSBDC and Heidi and her team to prepare a business plan, financials. It's a really great opportunity to connect small business owners with resources that are available that they may not know are available. So we're looking forward to that partnership and being able to do that, and also with the Money Smart program from FDIC, and being able to enhance that as well. And particularly the plans to, we already plan to work with neighborhood coteries and in the target areas to begin promoting the revolving loan fund program to business owners in these areas. So we're at the point where we're wanting to reach out and vet businesses who we know are very successful, would possibly be interested in expansion, be interested in facade improvements, to be proactive in doing that and in working closely with the neighborhoods that surround those businesses. So the criteria and the decision-making authority, I want to go over there. I will tell you, we are working with the banks who have expressed an interest in participating in the revolving loan fund program, and we really value their input. As LCG, we are not a financial institution. This is the first time we've done something like this to be housed at the local government level. So we're really are seeking and valuing their insight into the loan terms and the structure of this. So there are some things that we haven't gotten a final blessing on yet that I did not want to put on paper because I didn't want to get evil eyes from any of the participating banks in the room. So I'll just go and go over the basics of the decision authority and the criteria that we know will be in place. So we have a community development loan officer within our office. We actually administer CDBG loans for our first-time homebuyers program and some of our rehab clients. So we already have the mechanism to be able to accept and obtain information to determine eligibility and credit worthiness and what have you. The maximum loan amount is at the discretion of the loan approval group. The loan officer will process the application, recommend approval or denial, and the loan officer's recommendation is forwarded to the loan approval group. And something that we found from our legal review, which is great to have attorneys review your stuff, is that if we were to have participating banks to serve on a loan approval group or loan committee, they will be subject to public meetings laws, public records laws, financial disclosures. They'd be treated as any other city board or commission. So in doing that, we have the financial institution serving in an advisory capacity. So an application may be run by the financial institutions for insight and input for obvious reasons, but they do serve in an advisory capacity and not the decision-making authorities. I want to make sure I'm clear about that. And the loan approval group is comprised of the mayor president, Joel Robideau, the director of community development, and also the director of planning, of development and planning, for obvious reasons, as I mentioned, making sure that the projects that we're funding are aligned with the work that's being done and the plans that currently exist. And in closing, so I found this on the Housing Finance website, and I thought it was really cool, and it really sums up what I have to say, is that the Revolving Loan Fund program is really a tool that LCG intends to use as a catalyst for economic development through public and private partnerships in opportunity zones where meaningful work is currently taking place on a ground level with engagement with community stakeholders. And I'll tell you, when we first started this process, opportunity zones wasn't a thing. Like, people were talking about it, but the designations hadn't happened yet. And again, this was, a 1.5 year long process to get to right now where I can even introduce this to you. So now we're in a position where it's like, okay, we have this program that's really close to being set and in place. So now, how do we discuss layering and the opportunities there, and how do we infuse the opportunity zones and that factor and that piece into the program to make sure that it can be a part of the incentives that development and planning would like to present to those who are interested in development and investing in these target areas. So it's an opportunity to provide assistance at all levels, ranging from the small business owner who needs a piece of equipment to build capacity, maybe the neighborhood grocery store who wishes to expand and wants to complete some facade improvements, and up to the large industry as well, the company or the development interested in relocating to target areas but maybe needs some gap financing. So we're not counting that out of the equation. So we look forward to continuing to build out the Revolving Loan Fund program in partnership with our local financial institutions to accompany the Opportunity Zone investments that we know will be coming. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, everyone. That was most informative, and I hope that we shared some helpful information with you about what resources exist at the state level, regional level, and local level here in Lafayette that can be layered on top of the Opportunity Zones program to sort of catalyze growth and investment in Louisiana small businesses. Before we open it up for questions, I want to share something with you about the stats in the Louisiana Opportunity Zones that I found interesting and eye-opening, and really solidified the belief that we chose the right zones, the census tracts, and that these areas can stand to gain from the investment the most. In Louisiana's Opportunity Zones, there are 542,000 residents, 30,000 businesses representing 451,000 jobs. The poverty concentration on average in Louisiana's Opportunity Zones is 32%, compared to the threshold of 20% for being eligible for the program. And the median income for individuals in the Opportunity Zones is only $37,485, which is below the state's median average. So these are the census tracts that have been designated as opportunity zones, and these are the areas that need the investment the most. And so we feel very confident with the collaboration from local leaders that we chose the right 150 census tracts, and that we are optimistic about the future and possible investments. So that being said, I would like to open it up for questions of our panel. And if you are shy, then I will throw out a few softball questions. I know it's been a long day, and I know we loaded you down with lots of information.
Thanks. This is a very non-financial question. I did notice in the listing of the business plan components that you'd be requiring, you have to take environmental impacts into consideration. And I was just kind of wondering what that looked like. Is that more of a due diligence focus? Is that more of sort of like a NEPA component? And then who ultimately is responsible for providing that, the person who's accepting the loan? Yeah, they ultimately have to provide
Yes, and we model a lot of this after how we manage our community development loans with CDBG, which, do require environmental review on everything. And so that's where that piece came in. So that would be on the responsibility of the applicant. Yes.
Hi, this question is for Lisa. You mentioned with the South Central Planning Development Commission, you're serving Region 3, and Heidi, I know, is with Region 4, but you also mentioned up to the $250,000 loan that was available for Lafayette Parish. So is there overlap between the two districts there?
Only in St. James Parish. St. James is in Region 3, which is our South Central Planning Region, but it's also a restore parish. It's eligible for restore funds. So that's 51 parishes across the state, only one of which is in our South Central region, and that's St. James.
Okay. Is Lafayette then eligible for
Lafayette is in the restore. The only parish is not in restore. It's our region, Terrebonne, Lafourche, Assumption, St. Charles, St. James, St. John, Orleans, Jefferson, Plaquemine, St. Bernard, and those are always the only ones I can remember off the top of my head.
You did a great job.
There are 3 others. There's 13 that are not eligible. I don't know I can't remember the 3 others all the time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions? So I will ask you, each of you, to kind of pitch in on this one. What are some of the first steps a small business can take to harness the potential of investment opportunities? Either tie it to your programs or opportunity zones or both?
I think it's important for any small business to really be engaged in the community work that's taking place within the neighborhood. Again, as I mentioned with the target area that we're looking to focus on, there's a lot of work being done, and I know that those coteries and associations are working really hard to engage the small business owners that are there. And so that, I think that's the first step really in being able to just be engaged in what's happening outside of the business doors and what's taking place and what's taking shape. And so I would say it goes both ways. I know that the neighborhoods are reaching out to the business owners that are housed, that are located there, but definitely the small business owners should absolutely reach out to those within the neighborhood to be in touch and engage with what's taking place and the planning that's happening.
From our perspective, we're trying to find businesses that are eligible for something that we've not really ever done before. So we're going to implement an outreach plan in the next few months to sort of study what's out there, what the needs are, and how we can be a part of it with the restore funds that we have, but also with potentially some of the opportunity zones that are in this region and our Region 3 South Central Planning. Oh, and Cameron is another one of the 13 parishes. That's 11.
And I think Dr. Nelson and I talked about this on Friday. She and I met about the loan program in specific, and I think having a vested interest in the area that most of these programs would touch, not so much speculative or something that's going to not benefit all. I think if you take that benefit that you're going to go into that with that idea of expanding economic development in those regions, then I think it would be a win-win for everyone.
Great, and I'll just add this, a plug for the LED website. We have an interactive tool on our website where you can plug in an address or the GEO ID of your census tract to determine if you are in an opportunity zone. So I will encourage small business owners, or if you're going to the bank, you're trying to get to the next level, you need to order a piece of equipment, or you planning an expansion, or you have an angel investor that wants to support your idea and your startup, check your address and see if you're an opportunity zone, because it's one more selling point that you have that you can layer on any of these other programs that we're talking about. I'll throw out one more question, and I think we'll wrap up if we don't have any more from the audience. And any of you can choose to chime in on this one. What is the most impactful strategy for combining revolving loan funds that we've talked about today with any of the other incentives available, including the opportunity zones?
I'll go. I think one of the impactful things I heard this morning is when you look at how it's so difficult to come about capital, because the minute I tell somebody this is your down payment of a loan, you can see the big eyes. But I think if that would be a great opportunity, if there's an impactful project in an area that would be revitalized, just having that opportunity to tap into those funds would be more capital in addition to your bank funding, and then maybe a piece that you're putting into it. In terms of the revolving loan funds, I can tell you some of the projects we've done, even with Lisa's organization, is that Tandem is actually mitigating the risk of a commercial bank and using some of these funds, and some of the projects could be joined together so that there again it's producing economic development but also mitigating the risk on both sides.
That's what I was going to say. I would agree with the last thing that Heidi said, in that our best projects come from our banks. And we started to gain some traction with one of the APC loan programs, so we were making relationships with bankers in this region as well. And our bankers that sit on our board and work in our region, those are our best promoters. You know, they send us folks, or they send us, or their colleagues will send us full-on projects and say, you know, we think this is a great project, but it's kind of risky and it's a little bit different, but will you go in half with us? Those are the best projects we get. So, you know, traditional lenders seem to find these larger and more appropriate projects for our funding than we've been able to do. But like I said, we are going to be doing some outreach in the next few months, and we want that to help us out as well.
Ditto to what they said, really. I think with Mayor President Robideau, when talking about the gap financing and the partnerships with financial institutions and the layering and all the incentives that are available, we're just in a unique position to be able to participate in that to help mitigate some of the risk that may be involved in some of these projects. So absolutely, that's our role, and I think the best strategy that we can see in terms of partnerships when it comes to the Opportunity Zone incentive.
All right. Well, thank you, ladies. One last round for questions before we wrap up. Okay. So we hope that our panel today about filling the gap for existing businesses has been informative. We hope we've enlightened you about programs that exist that you may not have been aware of as you seek to support small businesses in your areas, or if you are a small business and you're considering an expansion or looking for some capital. We hope that the information presented here today will be helpful in your future endeavors. And I will just close with this. The Acadiana region, the people here are known for, we're known because I'm a native and I still live here, but we are known for our ingenuity and our entrepreneurialism. And so I believe, will continue to lead the way throughout the process. We heard the most robust collaboration and input from the Acadiana region. You're out front with the prospectus, et cetera, et cetera. So we expect Acadiana to continue to lead with innovative ways to take advantage of opportunity zones. But my heart is with small business. So I appreciate the opportunity, Ms. Monique and Chad, and thanks to our panelists today, Ms. Heidi, Ms. Lisa, and Dr. Shanae. So thank y'all.